All right, everyone, we are live. How's it going, everyone? My name's Rocky here on the Injective team. Thank you for joining us for this user workshop. Super excited to be here with my esteemed colleague Oz. Oz, how's it going?
Hey, Jam guys. Nice to have the Deb Reel here from Circle and excited.
Awesome. And HJ from the Circle team. HJ, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Excited to hang out with the Injective community again. If you joined the developer one last time with Brendan, we were kind of, shooting the breeze the other day. So happy to be back again.
Well, thanks for being here, and you've been a huge resource for us. And yeah, think of this workshop more on just for everyone in the audience purposes. This is more kind of for retail users, people just getting started with Injective, people just getting started with USDC, CCTP. So we really want to kind of take a 0 to 1 approach for this workshop. And so hopefully through our discussion today, we can kind of suss out some of maybe the questions that you guys have, and also kind of show you some workflows on how to onboard to Injective using USDC as well as CCTP, and then also just how, what are some of the things you can do once you're sort of onboarded. So we're going to start with just some kind of high-level discussion, talking about, Injective, talking about Circle, and then we'll kind of dive into some more sort of deeper topics. And then near the end, we'll do kind of a walkthrough demo, as well as kind of a community Q&A. So feel free to buckle in here for some introductions and some discussion, and then yeah, feel free at any time to drop your question in the chat box. It's currently being streamed to YouTube as well as X. We don't have comments enabled on X, but if you want to go ahead and actually click into the post and then drop your comment just as a normal post comment, we can take a look there. Or if you head on over to the Injective YouTube channel, you can also drop your comment there as well. And so, without further ado, let's start with some introductions here. I know we did some name introductions, but why don't we just, HJ, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick intro on what you do at Circle, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm HJ. I'm on the DevRel team at Circle. And basically, my team focuses a lot on developer education because I think Circle has established a reputation for being the issuer of USDC, the stablecoin, which we'll be discussing a lot later. But we also have a suite of developer products for what we feel like developers can use this to build, blockchain technologies, especially those specific to, supporting financial and economic activity online, and USDC being a key driver, a key liquidity piece in this entire ecosystem. And so there's a lot of developer facing products that we talk about mostly. And of course, we also, the developers are building for the retail audience, and so it's all interconnected. And so that's mostly my role: developer education and evangelism.
Amazing. Cool. I'll go next, everyone. Hi, everyone. It's been a while. We used to do actually a lot more sort of spaces and things of that nature, and I used to host those, but I know we have a lot of new people as well, so wanted to introduce myself. I'm Rocky here on the Injective team. I lead our ecosystem marketing, so I work with the lovely people over at Circle and all of the other, ecosystem dApps throughout Injective. Anyone from kind of a one-person startup, founder-led startups, all the way to giant sort of corporations and whatnot, like the Circles of the world. Although not quite giant, I would say, but for crypto, definitely larger than some of these companies, and yeah, the Google Clouds of the world, and large exchanges, things of that nature. And so I'm sort of the main point of contact there. I host fun things like this. Thankfully, the people here at Injective have allowed me to do so. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me. Oz, why don't we pass it over to you?
For sure. Yes, I have more than 3 years now working for Injective. And yeah, I'm excited to be here with Rocky sharing. I usually help him with this fun stuff. And now here I am on YouTube setting up my channel so I can chat with the community, right? Um, and yeah, excited.
Amazing. Well, thanks you guys. And so let's dive in a little bit more. Like I said at the beginning, this is really going to be focused on CCTP and USDC. And so, some of the questions that we've gotten, we've tried to kind of collect them all and sort of laid out the discussion points here. And so, one of the ones we've gotten is, what makes Injective a strong fit for native USDC and CCTP? And I guess just at a very high level, Injective has kind of a long history, right? It's been around since 2018, but officially as a blockchain since the early kind of 2020s. And so we've sort of positioned Injective as the blockchain built for finance. And so USDC being sort of a financial product, right? A stable coin that facilitates both trading and lending and all the other great sort of primitives that it's involved with. It was just like a natural fit to be here on Injective. It's one of those things that it's become almost the gold standard, right? Stable coin. It's become, the asset that everyone knows, whether you're coming from another layer one blockchain, whether you're coming from a centralized exchange, trading, people know what USDC is, right? And they trust it. And, they pursued a route where it's, highly regulated, and they've kind of followed the more regulated path. And so, they've been able to capture, I think, a lot of the not only retail flows, which are extremely important, but also the institutional flows as well, right? Because a lot of these institutions are held to a higher standard than, let's say, just a normal individual. And so it's really important that, us running a layer one blockchain could tap into the resources that come along with having a regulated stablecoin on our ecosystem. And so that was super important for us. And then I guess on the CCTP side, that just makes it a very seamless operation across ecosystems for us to, go for traders to go in and out of positions, in and out of different ecosystems, and just enable people to really have a good experience, right? Like that's I think the main foundation here is just like, how do we facilitate a really seamless user experience? And I think with these two tools, both USDC and CCTP, it makes a lot of sense, and it really enables us to provide that sort of heightened level of user experience. And some of the problems that we've seen in the past, just working with sort of other stable coins and things of that nature, is things like liquidity fragmentation, right? Where all of a sudden you have kind of liquidity fragmented across different ecosystems. And we've also seen, just a general, I mean, there's tons of different sort of stable coins out there, right? It's almost, there's probably as many stable coins as there are crypto assets, right? If you go onto any of these leaderboards like CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, there's probably a list as long of stable coins as there are of crypto assets. And so it was really important for us to really tap in to not only the things I mentioned earlier, but also the great team behind Circle, of just their support behind their products, the USDC asset was just super important for us to be able to tap into and really help guide us, to provide the products that developers need, that retail traders need, that institutions need. And so that was sort of the main unlock for us. And so I don't know, HJ, maybe I'll pass it to you. Like what am I missing here?
No, I think you covered the bases really well. And I also wanted to highlight that on Circle's side, we thought that this partnership with Injective was also significant for us, because for us, like, I think we, at our team, we understand that blockchain technology is revolutionary, but there is a relatively steep learning curve. And there's a level of complexity that it's the nature of the technology, right? So the complexity is not going to be it's not going to go away. It's like it's like a law of nature. Like, you can't create or destroy mass, but what you can do is you can move the complexity. And I think this is akin to a lot of other technologies where when you start out, like even just a PC, right? Like the PCs of the past in the 70s, you had to know your stuff, you had to build your own machines, you had to tinker. And then slowly, as it became a bit more mainstream, people who are building these computers, they're like, oh, okay, the average user is not going to be able to have that level of technical expertise to be able to use this thing, but it's such a useful thing. So the complexity starts to move. It starts to move to the people who are build, like, one level behind, to like it becomes more abstracted away, such that the user experience becomes, you don't really have to think twice about it. So I think blockchain technology is at that stage. Think of it, if you want an analogy, it's like we're still probably the hobby PC age, and we're like, oh no, I lost a screw, my RAM is falling out, that kind of thing. But what we see is that USDC, the point of us, you mentioned, right, there are like as many stable coins as they are raindrops in the sky when it rains. But we at Circle, we have worked very hard to establish USDC as the most regulated stablecoin in the world. We have chosen to go the regulated route before, regulations were a big factor, and we have seen that pay off dividends for us now. Like it was hard work in the past, and for Injective, we feel that Injective, it represents a combination of high frequency DeFi activity and institutional trading. And it really, having this, to be able to provide a canonical US dollar stablecoin, a canonical on-chain dollar, we feel like this partnership is a really, really strong one. And we want economic activity. We want like stable coins is money velocity. So, okay, that was a bunch of jargon. I am so sorry. But what we see is that stable coins can facilitate the movement of value. And so to us, being natively issued on Injective is it's just you didn't have to think too hard like this. That yes, of course we would do that. And I think for value to be stuck on one chain is a bit of a challenge. And so where CCTP comes in, it stands for, we're very sorry for all these acronyms, but CCTP stands for Cross-Chain Transfer Protocol. And so today, USDC is supported across 35 different blockchains, Injective being one of them. Really, really happy about that. And with CCTP, USDC, so this value that is held in USDC can flow across all these 35 chains. And we see that as providing all builders more access to liquidity, right? And I think that's, to summarize, I think that's why we always talk about USDC and CCTP together, because we're trying to expand the ecosystem, like to as many chains as possible. So money goes into Injective, out of Injective, back into Injective. So we see how this is how stablecoin can power economic activity, because things happen only when value moves. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you brought up, which I want to kind of double tap in here, and maybe I'll I'll kind of shine a light on it first, and then HJ, I'd love sort of your perspective on it too, is the whole difference between bridged USDC, which is what we used to have, and then native USDC. And so maybe I'll just give like a quick high level overview of that, and then HJ, if you want to jump in here and kind of take it deeper, I'd love that. But one of the things here at Injective, that up until just a few months ago, we had sort of the bridge version of USDC. And so what that means is that the USDC here wasn't sort of as HJ said, canonical or native to the Injective chain, meaning it wasn't minted directly on the chain. It came from another outside resource. And so, one of the things that's like a big difference between the two, between the bridge version and the native version, is it carries more risk, right? Just in the name there, it carries bridge risk. And so basically what that means is that, let's say I'm coming from another layer 1 blockchain and I'm coming over to Injective here. I use a bridge, right? And there's a number of bridges, right, to be able to do that. We have a native bridge, and then there's a bunch of third-party bridges out there. But one of the concerns from just a sort of asset perspective is that, hey, what if one of these bridges that you brought your USDC through, winds down, or there's an issue with, sort of the backing of that particular asset, right? My understanding with sort of a bridge version is that, like, let's say if there's a problem with kind of the source chain, right? So if you have like native USDC on a third-party chain, and then you bring that over to Injective, but then there's a problem on that original chain with their USDC, it's going to sort of affect that same backing here on Injective as well. And so, that's just sort of one of the risks that a bridged asset carries just natively, or that's probably a bad term to use, natively, but it just carries with it at a very high level. Now, the native version abstracts that away because, again, it's minted natively on the chain, meaning it's directly. There's no bridges involved. There's no other outside third party that essentially is facilitating that asset being there. It's just a native deployment, right? Same thing with like an application, right? If an application goes to Injective and they deploy directly on Injective, well, that is now a native application, so to speak. And so, for us, that was a very important distinction to have. And I'm glad we finally got the native version over the line here, just to make, again, facilitating trading, facilitating all the great things that can happen on Injective and its DeFi ecosystem. So what did I miss, HJ? I know there's probably some more. Do you mind sort of outlining that?
For sure. So I think Rocky gave a pretty good overview of like what's bridge, what's native, what's all these terms. So stable coins are stable for various reasons, right? So for us, for USDC, we are 1-to-1 fully backed to the US dollar. It's fully redeemable 1-to-1 for US dollars, and therefore the supply of USDC must always be kept constant in order for it to maintain its, let's call it a peg to the actual US dollar. And so Circle holds like highly liquid cash and cash equivalents in order to back this up. So when we have USDC in circulation across 35 different chains right now, in order to keep the supply fixed, there are a couple of methods, and one of the most common methods is what Rocky described as a bridged asset. So let's talk about let's say Ethereum as a chain, because it's the chain that everyone knows, EVM chain. A lot of USDC is on Ethereum, and Injective. So these are two separate chains. USDC, if you have USDC on both of these chains, they are technically not interoperable. Before USDC was deployed onto Injective, that was not possible. So what you used to do was you would rely on a third-party provider known as a bridge. And so again, in order to keep the supply stable, let's just like there's 100 USDC flowing on Ethereum, and there's like no USDC on Injective. If I want to transfer 50 USDC from Ethereum over to Injective, the supply has still must be kept 100. So what happens? On Ethereum, 50 USDC gets locked up. So it's still there. It was issued on Ethereum, but it's locked up by the bridge provider. And so you can't touch that. So it's kind of like taking 50 out of play and then issuing a wrapped version of that USDC, 50 wrapped USDC on Injective. And then you still keep the supply of USDC at 100 in total, but the bridge is a very big factor in keeping this system going. So bridge risk, as what Rocky described, is like if something happens to the bridge gets hacked, bridge goes down, the funds are in danger. The way Circle has come, so CCTP is a protocol. So it's a protocol that our team has come up with that it takes a different approach. So in order to keep the supply constant, we go back to Ethereum and Injective. So now Injective natively supports USDC, which means we have deployed the official USDC contracts and CCTP contracts on the Injective chain itself. So now what happens is that the mechanism is different. So we use something called a burn and mint mechanism. So again, 100 USDC on Ethereum, no USDC on Injective. I want to move 50 over. So what happens is that we just burn 50 USDC on Ethereum. When you do any transaction on any blockchain, there's always a transaction hash. So once 50 USDC has been approved and burned on Ethereum, the transaction hash goes to Circle's attestation service. And if everything checks out, Circle's attestation service will issue an attestation and a message. And then you can use that attestation and message to call the mint contract that we deployed on Injective to mint 50 USDC on Injective. So the USDC on both chains are canonically minted by Circle. And so that to us, that resolves. I'm not saying that, oh, this means it's secure for forever. No, but it does reduce risk because there's one less party, and you can be assured that the USDC is deployed. It's minted from Circle deployed contracts. Yeah, I think that's as non-technical as I can make the explanation of CCTP to be. But Rocky, tell me if I could make that even simpler.
No, that's perfect, HJ, and that's exactly what I was hoping for, is to kind of outline to just how important it is, or the distinctions on the contract side too, which I think is a great point to highlight here. And so, with that being said, now that native USDC is here on Injective, so just to kind of outline, hey, well, now what, right? What can people actually do? I mean, there's so many great things that a user can now do on Injective once they have sort of native USDC here on Injective. And that's everything from all of our markets. So when you're looking to trade, whether it's spot or perp markets here on Injective, the base asset is USDC, right? So you're going to need USDC to basically trade those markets. Just to outline, we have sort of everything from crypto markets to equity markets. There's pre-IPO commodities. There's really kind of the whole gamut of different types of assets here on Injective that people can trade with. And again, all of those markets are denominated in USDC. And so as long as you have USDC, all of those markets are free for trading for you. And so, and then I guess one quick just distinction here, just so I don't lose anybody that's maybe new to trading. There's kind of I highlighted a difference between spot and perp markets. Spot is essentially just you own the actual asset, right? You trade USDC for let's call it the Injective token.
Is it just me?
What's us? Oh, got it. Okay. So yeah, like I was saying, if you wanted to own, let's say, the Injective token, you could go to a spot market and trade USDC for the Injective token, the INJ token, and then you actually own that asset. On the perp side of things, that's a little bit different. You don't actually own the underlying asset itself. You essentially just own the what they're called, the longer name, perpetual futures contract, which is essentially like I'm betting, quote unquote, that my USDC that this particular asset is going up, right? And so let's use the example of some of our equities, right? I want to buy Amazon, right? And so I want to trade Amazon. So I'm able to actually go to Injective, buy this perpetual futures contract, and actually lever up my position. So not only am I essentially exposed to Amazon at whatever that rate is, call it $200 a share or whatever it might be, I'm able to actually lever that up and amplify my returns, but also amplify my downside as well. And so I just wanted to call that out for those that might be new to trading. Those are kind of two ways that a lot of people use USDC to transact here on Injective. There's also things like lending markets, borrow against your collateral. So, let's say you go over to a ecosystem DApp like Hydro, you're able to essentially, lend out your USDC for a particular return. You're able to actually borrow against whatever that collateral is. So let's say you have, call it $10,000 of USDC. You're able to put that in Hydro. You're able to then go and say, okay, I want to borrow, $5,000 of another asset. You're able to do that, which is great. Completely autonomously, meaning, or not autonomous, but you're able to do that without any intermediaries. And then you're also able to do things like, let's see, I touched on spot, I touched on perp markets, lending. Let's see, what are some other markets that come to mind, HJ?
Well, USDC, you covered, like for trading, it's definitely there are some people who say they don't hear anything, but we do hear. I do hear you, Rocky. So hopefully it's a one-off thing, and then we're actually talking.
Okay.
I would say that, like, I think USDC can be used for what I'm trying to think of what's the more like interesting and exciting things. Well, agentic commerce, agentic commerce is probably the hottest thing, and they are a lot. So I'm not sure if this crowd is, because sometimes we're in a bubble and we think everyone knows what this is, but like what's pretty hot right now is people are giving their AI agents, a wallet, some money to go do stuff, and a lot of this money that they hold, services, you can pay for services in USDC, and USDC, goes down to, it's not just 1 cent, like it's a fraction of a cent, and that's an entire economy whereby you're able to offer services for a fraction of a cent, and you're imagining it's just volume, right? It's just volume of trades that, and not just like trades, agents offering services to each other. What we see that USDC is probably going to form the basis of a lot of this agentic economy. And so we are also supporting a lot of, okay, this is not a developer audience, I need to turn off my developer brain here,
that's
but
okay.
we have a lot of tooling that's going to support teams that are building agentic services by providing them the infrastructure under that. So if you're some sort of agentic service on top, and then we're giving them, like, each of their agents can have wallets, or each of such that every agent can hold some value and go and do stuff. And so we feel like that is it is very early days, but we do think that is a future that is coming sooner than later. And so that's like the cutting edge stuff. And then of course we think that when people start tokenizing more real world assets, like stock trading and all that, we think that USDC would be the key settlement currency, so to speak, after all this trading is said and done. So yeah, my only fun contribution was the agentic stuff.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, and that's one I think that we're just seeing emerging at the moment, right? And not only is it, I think, exciting just from a technology standpoint, I think it's exciting just because, like, that was impossible beforehand, right? If you think about like traditional, the traditional banking system, using credit cards, things of that nature for things like microtransactions, which I think is maybe the point I'll hit on here, is these companies, they're not only charging a percentage fee, there's usually kind of a small nominal fee too. So for instance, if I go to, a retail store and I buy ice cream, right, and it's $4, well, there's, let's call it 3% of that is a spread that goes to the issuer of the card, right? Visa, MasterCard, things of that nature. There's an interchange fee. And then there's also sometimes a nominal fee too, like 25 cents, 30 cents, things of that nature. And so, when I think about sort of the future of agentic commerce, you bring up a great point, which is that, hey, what if I want something to be like fractions of a cent, like you said? That model would just not work at all because of that fixed fee, right? Because of like, well, if let's say let's say I want a PDF. Every time someone accesses a PDF, I want them to pay, 0.1 cent or something. Well, if there's a 30 cent, card transaction fee, and then there's a 3% on top of that, it just like financially doesn't make sense, right? In an agentic world, especially when these things are happening at such a rapid pace. I'm not expecting just like one person to come over and view my PDF, but what if, it becomes popular and I want these agents to view it multiple times a day, multiple times a second, right? Like there's a lot of opportunities here, and having these microtransactions, I think is just going to be the unlock, I think, for monetization across different verticals that even maybe we haven't even thought of, right? The first thing that comes to mind is just info, right? Info products. But I know there's so many more that microtransactions and agentic finance will really unlock for kind of that next wave.
100%. And that, I think it's so interesting. Like I think the concept of micropayments is not new. It's just not been able to do it with the technology of our time.
Correct.
And it's not for the lack of trying. But I understand that the established TradFi institutions have to protect their moat. But if you think about it, and don't quote me saying it because I heard it from someone else. I just can't remember the source. It must have been a podcast, but someone once said that humans are the beta users for blockchain technology, and the real users of blockchain technology is going to be AI agents, because they just go hand in hand. It's the speed that we cannot even comprehend at a human level, because the speed of computation has reached a point today where we can't even that's why 0.0001 cent transactions can actually make sense when you have 1,000 transactions a second. That volume adds up. And the other thing that it's the boring thing that I think but people don't really think about is the fact that it's a stable coin being the asset for settlement. Because if your currency that you're going to use is fluctuating up and down, it's not going to work very well at that speed. So you do need a level of stability for this whole system to work. And that's why we think, stable coins are probably the best bet for that. And then, of course, we're like, well, we believe that USDC being a trusted and regulated stablecoin gives you that extra stability on top of the stablecoin. And so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see this whole agentic economy soon.
Yeah. I feel like it's almost it feels to me like kind of the early days of crypto a little bit, the agentic sort of commerce side, right? It's still somewhat fringe. It's still kind of, there hasn't been any winners, so to speak, right? I think there's still a lot of experimentation going on, like there is in crypto, obviously, and I hope to see that continue. And I guess before I get too ahead of myself, I know we did want to set aside time for Q&A. Oz or any of you guys, is there any kind of high-level questions that have come in or we want to address now? I know we're not at the ending where we take kind of all the questions, but is there maybe any that are relevant towards what's been brought up so far, whether it's
Yes,
Oh, go ahead, Os.
Actually, I see one that's interesting, actually, from the agents that you guys were mentioning. And well, I think it's more for Rocky, and but basically, it's talking about will be possible to enable users and AI agents to transact entirely on USDC without needing INJ for gas.
That's a good question. So let me make sure I understand the question. They're asking essentially, can we transact on Injective without INJ using USDC?
If it would be possible, because they know it's not possible right now, but yeah.
Yeah, so correct. Right now, that is currently not possible if you are transacting on chain, at least in the current form. One thing I can think of, and then HJ, I'll pass it over to you, is there are some early experiments going on with, I guess you could call it like gas subsidization, or something along those lines, where, like, let's say you're using a protocol that has an app that has kind of an on-chain component. There could be a world again, this is more in the future. I'm not saying it exists today, where that application actually sort of funds it, for lack of a better term, like funds the transaction, the gas fee, to kind of abstract it away from the user, right? But someone has to pay it, right? Like I think there's no getting around, hey, we need gas to be able to use on-chain products. But there are experiments and applications I know that exist sort of elsewhere, that applications kind of subsidize that gas fee for that particular ecosystem. And so, that could certainly work here on Injective. I don't know of any examples off the top of my head at the moment, but that would be one way of, like, hey, how do we kind of abstract this gas away from the user? That would essentially be one way to do it. What else from your perspective, HJ? Have you seen anything that's maybe outside of that?
So I know we're talking to the Injective community, but outside of, there are some chains that USDC is on, where they are these contracts called paymaster. So there is I don't want to sound too technical, but they are these different smart contract protocols on EVM chains. One of them is so there's a code for it, right? It's called ERC 4337, and it's called Paymaster, whereby it allows you to set up transactions without using native tokens, and then you can pay for the transaction using USDC afterwards. But again, that hinges on this functionality existing on the specific chain. So like even for us, right? Like Circle Paymaster is not on all 35 chains that USDC is running through right now. But that's not to say this kind of feature won't exist in the future, to Rocky's point. So technically, from a technical perspective, it is possible, but we do have to get to a point where that functionality exists on Injective. So even though, like Oz said, the audience is aware that today can't really do gas sponsorship very easily, but it's definitely technically possible in the future.
Yeah, thank you for calling that out. Certainly, that's and I appreciated that you dropped the ERC name too. That yeah, it is out there, but it is not as prominent as maybe we'd like to see, or has been successfully sort of pulled off on a very large scale. So cool. Well, I think we're at a good time to maybe pivot a little bit to start with the demos, because I'd love to see those workflows. And so, what we've sort of set up for you guys here is two main demos, right? The first one is going to be HJ is going to handle using kind of CCTP to get native USDC on Injective. And then after she kind of shows that workflow, we'll share the screen just here in a few seconds, and then I'll go through our kind of what we call simplified workflow, or we created a USDC widget that is a very easy way to essentially go from one of our other stable coins to native USDC. And it's, a couple clicks, very, user sort of forward and things of that nature. But HJ, take it away and feel free to share your screen whenever you're ready.
Got it. Oh, okay, hopefully it's coming up. So, okay, this does not look pretty because this is a developer demo. Basically what I do is I show the developers this thing and then I just flip to the code and we don't never see this ever again. So just excuse the plainness of this application. It's also running locally, so it's on my local machine. So it's actually running, and it might fail because demos always fail. But basically what I do is I've connected my EVM wallet to MetaMask. And so there is a source chain and a destination chain. So we got a lot of them. So I'm just doing Arc testnet. And this is all testnet because I don't use real money for these things. Anyways, we're going to try to bridge over to Injective. And so there are 4 steps in the CCTP flow. So I'm just going to start the transfer for 1 USDC because I'm stingy as hell. So the first thing you got to do is, oh, I did not share my full screen. Can I? Let me try and just share the entire screen because there's a MetaMask pop-up that does the thing. So I'm just gonna, how do I, okay, let's stop and let's do it again. I'll just do entire screen. Is it coming up? Yeah, so this is the part that I wanted to show. So, because like MetaMask will pop up. So you have to approve it. You have to approve that, like, yes, I'm allowing this amount to be spent from my MetaMask. So you confirm. And so then it proceeds with the burn. And so you have to agree that I'm going to burn one USDC on my source chain. I'm saying, okay, confirm. And that it sends that transaction hash over to our attestation service. And then you wait for a bit. And once you get that attestation, I'm triggering a mint on Injective. And I say, yes, I would like to burn on Injective. And the transaction is complete. And so all the transactions can be traced on the respective chains block explorers. And that's the 4 steps. And it works Injective back to any other chain as well. So yeah, so if you're on the network, so like Injective can bridge to the rest of the 34 chains, and the 34 chains can bridge over to Injective. It's like a liquidity party everywhere. So yeah, so that's the technical CCTP demo. So over to Rocky again.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful, and obviously, it's hard to get that wrong, right? Get that kind of process wrong. I'll just outline. So I quickly want to just touch on our native bridge as well, because there is kind of a built-in CCTP bridge for there as well. So let me go ahead and share this screen.
Yeah. How do I stop my, okay, there you go.
There we go. And I will hide your screen. Okay, perfect. So this is our native bridge. I just want to quickly highlight this. I won't do the whole flow because you kind of already saw it from HJ's perspective. But this is our CCTP bridge. It allows you, again, same idea, to go from any of the supported chains to Injective. You're able to specify, how many you want. There's a fast mode as well as a standard mode. I believe standard is a standard is the no fee version, and the fast, correct, there is a small fee included. Correct. It looks like it's only about 1 cent though. So, we're not talking multiple dollars, right, to get $10 here on Injective. So that all makes sense. And then the recipient at the bottom is going to be your sort of connected address. And then, yeah, and then this will light up once I sort of have selected everything and I had actual funds here. But then you just click Bridge USDC and go through that flow. So that would be sort of the production version or the mainnet version of that. And then let me stop sharing, and then let me just share the widget real quick. Okay. All right, and then this is our resource page. I guess I didn't, yeah, well, yeah, I won't share the whole screen. This is fine. But to get here, I'll include it in the show notes or the description of this stream. It's just injective.com/USDC. And the great thing about this is like going to be your resource page for all things USDC on Injective. So at the top, here is our widget, and I'll quickly just highlight some of the other points. Goes into the kind of the key value propositions of USDC, some of the live markets here on Injective, some of the resources. So there's docs, testnet, our launch blog, which goes into some more detail about the particular integration, as well as the various wallet providers that are supported, and then some FAQs. But we're not here for those things. We will go through the migration flow. So again, we're able to select from USDT as well as USDC Noble version, which again is our bridge version of USDC. And so I don't think I have any funds here, but I'll kind of show you the flow. Let me just double check. All right, I'll connect my wallet. And let's see. Okay, it does look like I have two USDT. Let me just, actually, I think there is a minimum. I think we do have a minimum here, but let me see if I can do that anyways. All right, so this, basically what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, I want 2 USDT to transfer over to USDC, and I'll go ahead and click swap. You guys can't see this, but it basically popped up that it wants to be approved on, oh, I know why. It's because I don't have any gas in this wallet. So that's all right. Oops, let me go
You
back.
see? That's
that's
what
the big thing.
the community was asking.
I know. So anyways, it's just you click swap, it comes up with a, for my purposes, a MetaMask approval, but for you, it might be a different wallet. Kepler also works, and there's a few others. You would essentially approve that transaction, and then within a few seconds, your USDC would now be in your wallet. And so that's just like a very streamlined, easy way to kind of get USDC here on Injective. But again, the way I showed you requires you to have both gas as well as another stable coin that you essentially want to migrate from to be able to use that widget. If you don't have those things, then I would recommend going the route that I showed earlier, which is the native bridge, or HJ showed essentially the CCTP through the local host route to do that. Cool. Well, those are kind of the three ways to really get USDC here on Injective. And before we get to Q&A, is there any kind of last minute topics you guys wanted to cover?
I thought we covered more than what we planned on covering, so I thought that's good. It's probably a good time to give the community some answers to any of their questions. Like Oz, could you help us with that?
Yeah, for sure. I got one right here, and this question is for HJ.
Okay.
Because there has been some time already since we are already supporting USDC natively, right? So they are asking how difficult it is for centralized exchanges like Coinbase or Binance to support native USDC from Injective.
I don't think it's hard at all because we've been partnered up with Coinbase from the very early days. Are we saying that there's no native USDC? Like you can't. I haven't logged into Coinbase lately, but that's interesting. Like that's not a USDC. I think Coinbase has to have the liquidity.
Yeah, I think that would be on kind of the Coinbase side, right? Like they would need to essentially have set up kind of an account for Injective USDC and then basically just click it on, right? It's on the Coinbase side. The contracts are already deployed, like, right?
So Coinbase needs to sort of mint the liquidity onto Injective if they're gonna enable the people to trade. So yes, Rocky and I both agree that this is on Coinbase, not
Okay. Good. Let me see. Well, this question is more for Rocky, I guess, for the team, but it's asking like if it's eventually gonna replace USDC natively is gonna replace the bridge USDC on Injective eventually, and what will be the timeline on that?
Yeah, good question. So, for a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of the markets, for instance, that were originally, let's say on Helix, which is one of our, premier decentralized exchanges here on Injective, those markets have already been fully transitioned over to native USDC. So the use cases for bridged USDC are becoming fewer, and the native USDC use cases are becoming much larger. And so in our mind, and again, we can't control sort of what other applications do, right? Because it's kind of up to them to decide what they see fit, right? But we've seen a lot of our other applications move over to a native USDC and deprecate kind of the bridged version. So it's just a matter of time. I think it's up to the user to decide, hey, do I still want to hold my bridged USDC or do I want to migrate over to the native version? That's really up to the user. And I'll say that obviously the use cases that you'll be able to put that to use, whether it's trading or lending, it's now native only, or if it's not native only, it will be very soon. So as far as the timeline goes, we're all set on our side. A lot of the ecosystem partners have already migrated, and so it's just a matter of it's up to the user now to decide when that time makes most sense for them.
Nice, thank you. I think that's it from our side. I think many questions are like related to the team more than for HA, right? But yeah, that will be it.
Cool.
Amazing.
I think that's a great place to leave it, you guys. We covered, just looking back through, I mean, we covered native versus bridged USDC. We covered why Injective is a great fit for USDC and CCTP. We covered, HJ covered a lot of the intricacies of CCTP and USDC. I covered some of the markets you can use here, from trading and lending and things of that nature here on Injective. I think we covered it, you guys. What do you anything we missed before final thoughts?
No, I think we're good.
I think
Yeah.
it was a good run. I mean, we experiment the bridge as well, and I mean, we even have feedback for the team, right? Suggestions, maybe make bridge transactions fees less. Like maybe we can sponsor the fees, something like that. It will be fun.
There we go. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. HJ, Oz, thank you guys for being here, and to the audience, thank you for joining here. This will live, across the Injective channels, whether that's on X or on YouTube. I'd actually recommend probably going over to YouTube, just because there is some resources down in the description box that heads over to some of the Circle pages that kind of explains USDC and CCTP in a little more details. And also there will be our widget that we went over as well. I'll also drop in the bridge just so that it's there. So that way we kind of have all the resources available in one place. But this has been great. And HJ, any kind of final thoughts from your side?
No, I'm always happy to have on this kind of workshops and chatting with you guys in Injective. I'm hoping there's more to come as the ecosystem and our partnership develops more. Hopefully, we'll see more of each other.
I agree. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone again for being here. I actually thoroughly enjoyed the discussion and some of the workshops. This is how I actually got started in crypto, is watching workshops just like these. And so, what I'd recommend is, if you even want to take some notes, or if you want to go back and follow along kind of step by step through some of these processes, that always kind of helps get yourself familiar with these types of operations as you sort of advance your crypto career, so to speak. So awesome.
And if you have any questions, feel free to
Yeah.
join our Discord. We'll be there, and the community will help you.
Yep, exactly. And same on the Circle side. If there's something that falls more on the Circle side, if you're like, hey, XYZ about USDC or CCTP, feel free to go over to the Circle side as well. Their links will also be in the description box. And so, yeah, this has been fun, you guys. Let's definitely do this again, and maybe we'll do a 201 version, right? So maybe a more intermediate version next time or something. But yeah, this has been great. And for everyone in the audience, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.